So Audacity is a audio recording and editing tool that we use a lot in the instructional media group. Several of us use it as our primary audio editor. And the beauty of it is that it's very robust, it's very flexible. It can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it, depending on your project. And it's 100% free. It's free, open source, downloadable. So if you just go out and do a Google search on Audacity download, it'll take you to the Audacity homepage, which you see sitting before you here. There are two versions that are kind of their latest production versions. There's 1.2 and 1.3. 1.3 was never an official release. It's been a beta. It's been in beta for a couple years. I just think that they decided, man, it's good enough. We'll just leave it out there. The only primary differences I can find between the two is there's just some tools that they've moved around and stuff. I haven't read through all the readmes to tell you exactly what the differences are. I've tried both of them, 1.2 and 1.3. I personally prefer 1.2. The tool palette was what I was used to, and I didn't see any gain to go to 1.3. So it's just a matter of personal preference. If you start out with 1.3, you'll probably be fine. So just completely a matter of personal preference. There is one component that you're not going to get when you download this, but that is also a free download, and I'll show you what that is here when we get to the exporting section of our presentation here. So you can just download that for your OS and install it, and you'll be good to go. So that's probably one of the coolest things is like I said, that it is free. I use it at home for doing personal podcasting. I use it for editing songs for different people for different reasons. You know, it's really cool, really simple to use. So I'm going to go ahead and fire it up and show you what it looks like. So here's what it looks like. It can be a little intimidating when you first open it if you've never dealt with digital audio before, and you see all these funky sliders and tools and buttons. But I'll show you what most of these are, and it'll be pretty simple once you get rolling. I don't know what Dave, do you know what the track limitations are on it, on Audacity? I don't. Yeah, I've never reached it. I've had as many as 16 tracks running simultaneously when I was tweaking audio, different instruments, different things. So I don't, most of the stuff we do is 2 or 3 on audio at most. Usually it'd be like voice and music is about the only 2 things that we typically do. So you've a couple things to look at. I'm not going to go through every single one of these given the time that we have here today, but I just wanted to give you enough to get started with the basic tool set. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go into my preferences and make sure that I have my devices set up appropriately. I have my recording device set up accurately, and I have my playback device set up appropriately. So if I just go to Edit and go to Preferences, first thing it's going to bring up is my audio I/O. Right now I have my little Microsoft $20 headset plugged in with the mic running right now. So my recording device is going to be my headset here. It's my Microsoft Live Chat. I could use the mic inside of my laptop. Not that great a quality. We've been working on a project with Lynette Stevens, and she had some audio that she needed to record, and instead of coming in and borrowing one of our headsets, she grabbed her son's Xbox headset, plugged it in, and fired up Audacity and recorded her own audio in her house. So it's amazing the quality that you can get for a really minimal investment. And for playback right now, I'm going to have it playing back through my system audio so that you guys could hear it. Typically, if I was editing, I'd probably have it playing back through the live chat as well, so it'd be playing back through the headphones. So I'm going to have it recording through the boom mic here, and then I'll have it playing back through my system audio. When you first get started, really the only preference that you have in here to worry about would be quality. Most of the stuff that we do for voiceover, quality really isn't a big issue. You can drop the quality quite a bit and still get acceptable audio quality. Last Lunch and Learn I did was about Camtasia, and this is a perfect tool for doing voiceovers to export and then drop into your Camtasia projects. This is the tool that I typically use. When you do that, you can take the defaults on here, your default sample rate of 44,100, and I'll explain a little bit about what that means here after I record some audio. And you can typically just take all your defaults. When you export, that's when you need to be a little bit more concerned about the bit rate that you're exporting at, depending on what your application is. If you're looking for CD quality audio, obviously you're going to export at a different quality level than you are if it's something that, hey, it's going to be a podcast of two people talking that I'm streaming over the internet. Obviously, then you're more concerned about file size, how much bandwidth it's going to take, so you're going to squeeze your quality down a little bit from there. So those are my basic tools, and you can see up here I've got a tool palette for editing, which I'll talk about here once I get some audio recorded. I've got some standard, what I usually call VCR controls. Right, I've got my fast forward play. I got this big red record button. If I was to punch the red record button right now, I would start recording audio through my microphone. It's just as simple as that. That's how long it takes you to get set up. You load it, you say, here's my recording device, you punch record, you're recording. So very, very basic. You have pause and stop, fast forward. These are some of your levels that you can set, or these meters. You'll see playback and record meters coming across here, and these are your playback and record levels. So if I want to, if the sound is coming in too high, then I would want to adjust this record level down, okay, so that my input level is not too high. And I'll show you what those look like, what that waveform looks like. So I'll go ahead and punch the record button, and you can see that right now it's actually recording. I got my meter going on across the top here. It's making the little waveform that if you've watched enough science fiction movies, you're probably used to seeing that little waveform or some semblance thereof. So right now it's absolutely recording 100% of what I'm saying. So to get started in recording, it really is just that simple. It takes very, very, very little to get going. So any questions? No? No. Don, for you it is not. Now if you see these certain spots where it's hitting the top and the bottom of my little record band right here, that tells me that I'm probably recording at too high a level. And when you hit that level, you start experiencing what's called clipping. Have you ever listened to an audio recording where even when it's turned down, when it gets loud, it sounds crackly, it sounds like it's breaking up, sounds distorted? That's what clipping is. You're putting too much volume into the device that is set up for recording. So based on that, I could look through here and I could drop that level a little bit, bring it down. I can do it real time, so now I'm not bouncing quite as big, don't have as many problems going on as I did previously. So things that you want to be aware of. When you're recording, I always try to err on the side of recording at a lower volume than I do a higher volume. I don't want to push it too much because there's a lot of things I can do in post after the fact. If it's too quiet, I can amplify that. I can do other things to it to get that volume where I want it to be. It's a whole lot easier to make it louder than it is to take out distortion or clipping in your final recording. Another tip here, when you are recording, you always want to leave some dead space. So if I was firing up my recording, I'd stop, give it 4 or 5 seconds of just clean dead space, and I'll show you why that is. That's going to allow us to apply a filter so that we can make sure that we pull out any background noise that you may have picked up. Any air conditioning noise, anything going on in the background, any consistent noise, we'll be able to pull that out. So once I've got my recording all done, I'm sitting here, I'm reading my script, I'm doing whatever. Yes, Dick, you had a question?
On the left-hand side there we got 1.0, 0.50, -0.5.
Yeah, those are your levels off of 0. I don't want to get too detailed in my explanations. I'll explain that a little bit here when I go in and start showing you editing. But yeah, that's how close you are above and below the 0 point. So I'll explain that a little bit here when we get going. So at this point, I could pause my recording, and maybe I needed to do something else and go, I had to go check my script, or I had to go yell at the dog because it's barking while I'm trying to record, or whatever the case may be. And then if I click pause again, it'll stake up my recording right where it was. Now, if I were to actually stop my recording, and if I were to click and start recording again, it's going to create another track. Nothing wrong with that. I'll show you how that you can take these two tracks and you can combine those tracks if you wanted to. There's different options. There's different reasons why you might want to record separate tracks. For example, if you were doing music, you would have lead vocals and backup vocals. So you could record both of those, layer those tracks so that they sounded correctly. So just to use a music analogy there. So I will stop. So now I've looked at this, And I've decided that this first section here, I'm gonna kill this second track here just for the simplicity of use here. I'll pull in a second track here in just a few moments. I've got some zoom in and zoom out tools, so if I want to see what the whole thing looks like, I can zoom out and zoom in. And I can see all of this clipping in here, and maybe that was where I was trying to set my record levels. You know, usually if you've ever come in and recorded audio for IMG, we'll say, okay, read a paragraph, and while you're doing that, we're sitting there tweaking levels, trying to make sure that the recording sounds right and that everything's good before we actually start doing our published recording. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, I want to trim off all this junk in the front. It was garbage. I don't want to listen to it. I can listen to the playback if I want to. That's what clipping is. You're putting volume into the device that is pretty good quality for a $17 microphone. Doesn't do too bad of a job. Whenever you're editing, whenever you're working on your recordings, I always recommend doing it through headphones, not doing it through speakers. The headphones show all. Terry just experienced this last week. She was recording a project and she said, "Hey, listen to this. Tell me what you think." And we were listening through speakers. I said, "Try it in headphones." And she came back and said, "It was awful. It sounded fine through the speakers, but then you hear all the hisses and the pops, and you really pick up all that background noise." So I always try to edit when I'm editing or I'm working with audio. I always make sure I do it through headphones, just because it seems to pick up a lot more of the detail. So I've decided that this first section I want to dump, and so I'm going to find myself an edit point. Yeah, I'm going to edit, say, from right here. So I just click there, and right now I'm on this is my editing tool palette right here. I'm on the selection tool, so I want to select a section to edit out. So all I got to do is grab here, highlight the section that I want to delete, and of course if I was zoomed out this would go quicker. I'll zoom out, hit the delete key, away it goes. So I just cut that piece of audio off of it. Simple as that. Okay. Now before I get going too far in my editing process, now I've kind of got, this is the rough file. This is the stuff that I want to pull all together. There's two things that I always do, and this is just personal preference. This is just my workflow that seems to work for me. The two things that I always want to do is I want to run a background filter to pull out any background hiss or noise in the background. And the other thing I want to do is I want to amplify the signal as loud as I can possibly get it. Something that I found really interesting is if you go out and pull a piece of music that was recorded, say, late 70s, early 80s, then pull a piece of music that was recorded recently, and compare the waveforms, these waveforms on the two, you'll see that the stuff that has been recorded recently is actually much, much louder. They've done tests, and most people think that if it's louder, it's a better quality. And so what the recording studios do now is they push the limits and they try to make that track as loud as they possibly can without getting distortion, because people mistake that loudness for a higher quality recording. So it's amazing if you take those two pieces of audio, import them in the waveforms, they look completely different, even though it can even be the exact same music but recorded at two different times just based on what the trends were in recording at the time. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to run this filter. If you can see, I got this flat spot right here. That's where I was leaving my quiet space. So under effects, I've got a whole list of tools. They're all grayed out right now. The reason they're all effects, and the reason they're all grayed out right now is because I don't have anything highlighted. The minute I highlight something, it's going to give me the ability to run an effect on there. So I'm going to highlight this section of dead space using my selection tool. And I'm going to click effect now that I can run all these effects on there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down and use this noise removal. When I pull up the noise removal, now if you do run 1.3, this tool does look different. This noise removal filter does look different when you open it up, but it effectively does the exact same thing. And this is a two-step process. The first step, one, we need to get the noise profile. So I've left that dead space in the recording, and I'm going to let the tool learn what dead space sounds like so that it can go and remove any of those background hisses, pops, whatever it may be. So I'm going to click Get Noise Profile. And you want to have, they tell you a minimum of 1.5 seconds. I usually, the longer is better. So usually when I walk in the booth and I'm ready to record something, I'll leave 10 or 15 seconds of dead space on the front of it before I ever start recording. So now I've got my noise profile. Now I want to highlight the entire track, and I'll just do it Control A, just like I would on any other software tool, right? Select all. I'm going to go Effect, and I'm going to go Noise Removal again. Now when I do this, it says, okay, what level of noise removal do you want to do? And it's going to default right to the middle. If I preview it, gives me a preview, doesn't sound too bad. One thing I can tell you is right now, if I were to leave that there and I were to do a noise removal and listen to it through my headphones, it would not sound good. It's going to get a very robotic sound to it. Because what happens is if you have the noise removal up too high, it starts to go in and remove certain frequencies and tones in your recording. So it'll sound almost, you know, you're familiar with auto-tune, right? You hear all the songs now that are auto-tuned. It'll sound almost like that because it's removing certain frequencies in your voice path. So I usually drop this guy way down. Yeah, I usually bring it somewhere, you know, within the bottom quarter of noise removal. And I preview it, make sure it sounds good. Again, it's hard to tell through these little speakers what it's doing. And then once I've got my selections made, I can click Remove Noise, and it'll go through here. Just take a few seconds, depending on the length of the track, and it's removed all the background noise. Now, what the big thing that does for us is it's going to clean up our edit points. Almost all audio in the background has some form of background noise in it. Might be a solid tone, might be white noise, might be something that you hear there in the background. What will happen is if that background noise is very visible or you can really hear it, as you create edit points, you'll hear little pops in that background noise. Even though there might not be any talking or any sound going on at that point, there's still that background noise. So as much of the more background noise that you can remove, the better your end edited sound is gonna be. So that's why the first thing I always do before I start the bulk of my editing is I go through a noise removal process. Okay. Any questions? No. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to amplify the track. I'm going to use my amplify tool. Now what Audacity is going to do is it's going to do most of the work for you. When I click amplify, it's gone through already and it's said, okay, based on the selection of audio that you've provided to me, the most that I can amplify this without experiencing clipping is 1.5 dB in this case. Okay. So it's already done that work for me. If I try to go above that, the OK button gets grayed out. It says, wait a minute, I have to actually tell it, look, I know that it's going to clip and I'm okay with that. So if we go back to our 1.5 dB, it was 1.5, right? I thought it was. Okay, it's happy now. And watch what will happen when I click OK. It'll go through if you watch the waveform. Boom. Waveform just grew a little bit. So it just amplified my sound a little bit. Now I do have the ability to adjust the volume of a specific track inside of my mix using a slider over here. So let's say I had two people talking back and forth. So I had them recorded on separate tracks. One person was quieter than the other. I could go in there and say, I'm just going to bring that person up a few dB, listen to it, and sit there and can do my adjustments. Okay. Give it a listen. So if I was firing up my recording, I'd stop. Sounds pretty decent. Yes, Rami.
Left-right slider. You had two people talking. You could put someone more to the right and the other person more to the left.
Absolutely, using your panning here. Cool. Absolutely, you could push one all the way to the left, one all the way to the right, and have them talking on both sides of the stereo mix. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. As far as editing, it really is. I mean, you already saw me remove that first piece. We'll just sit here and listen to it. Well, now I've got this dead space in here. I didn't want that dead space in here. So I'm going to zoom in on it, and I'm going to go, okay, I'm just going to highlight that. And I just cut that piece of dead space out using my delete key. It really is that simple. So when you record, and say you have your script in front of you, you're recording audio for a piece of learning or whatever your application is, as you're going through there, ooh, Barnes & Noble has deals. As you're going through there, probably not. Actually, they are. I did get a free ebook this morning. As you're going through there, okay, you go, okay, this take was bad, take it out. This take was bad, take it out. Oh, that take was good. And you'll get an eye for it. If you actually watch the waveform, you'll notice that when a person says a word, the waveform's going to look similar. even if they say it incorrectly at different volumes. So you'll go. So when you look at the waveform, you're going to be like, okay, they tried it here, they screwed up. They tried it here, they screwed up, without even listening to it. Okay, there's the good one, and you'll be able to chop those out and pull it out. Just visually looking at it, you'll be able to tell that. So it's pretty slick from that standpoint. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. So that as far as the editing goes, real simple. Highlight, delete, that's removing sections. You have a lot of other toys in here that you can do with effects. You can change the pitch. You can change the speed. You can make them sound like they're chipmunks, right? So I can come in here and go.
Give it 4 or 5 seconds.
Okay. You have change the tempo, which is interesting. It's different than change the speed. It will compress all of the slow low volume spots, and so it will actually increase the speed of the track without changing the pitch of the track. So I can go in here and say I want to speed it up. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Control Z. Give it 4 or 5 seconds. So you can kind of hear it there. It just gives you a little bit of, you go, oh, okay, I see what it's doing there. Let me highlight whoops. Always Control Z is always undo, right? You have echo effects. You can fade in, fade out. You have invert. You want to play it backwards. You can do that. Okay. Just tons of different tools that you can mess with. Usually for what we're doing, most of them don't apply. Every once in a while I might go in, depending on who's in there, change the pitch a little bit, maybe boost up the bass, make it sound a little more full, depending on how the recording sounds. So, wah-wah? Wah-wah's a guitar effect. 4 or 5 seconds, just dead space. Okay. So you can see there's all kinds of different tools and stuff. You can have fun playing around with them. I remember when I first got Audacity, I probably spent many, many hours in there making people sound goofy and all kinds of weird stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about these other tools here when I bring in another track. But that really is the basics of starting recording audio, editing audio. It is truly that simple. There's not a whole lot to it if you wanted to record a lecture in Canada or you wanted to record a voiceover for a piece of learning that you're putting together. So, are there any questions on that? I'll show you how to get it out of Audacity here in a few moments. So,
This could be a good tool for podcasting?
Absolutely. This is the exact tool that we're recording some podcasts on Monday, and this will be the tool that we're going to be using to record those. We're just going to have 2 mics running in through a mixer board plugged into a laptop and fire up Audacity, click record, and walk away. So, yeah, really simple. Oh yeah, Dave and I were discussing how cheap this stuff is compared to when I was in bands in the late '80s, early '90s, and it was like, you'd pay. I remember paying over $1,000 for a 4-track recorder. So yeah, something that you can do. So here, remove software budget. Got it. We can do everything with free. Don just wrote on the board, remove software budget. Everything's free. Uh-huh.
What is your recommendation? How many minutes?
It depends on what is your end goal. I mean, it really depends. If you're developing a piece of learning, Dave and I go back and forth about how short we can make something. It's like, how fast can we make it? How short can we make it? And still, obviously, be effective. You don't want to compromise quality for the sake of length. Like the podcasting that we're going to start recording and putting out, we're looking 10, 15 minutes max. Keeping in mind that any one topic most people are going to get bored of. We're not doing a morning radio show where you have multiple topics in comedy and all that kind of stuff. It's just we're trying to get a piece of information out, expose somebody to something. So we're going to keep it probably 10, 15 minutes at most. So, if you were going to, let's say, record a lecture or record a piece that you were going to give to students, say, go back to your hotel room tonight and listen to this, I would say 10 minutes. Take notes. We'll talk about it tomorrow. So the nice thing is, and it's the good thing and the bad thing, is that because you don't have interactivity, you can be very concise. You would be surprised at the amount of information that you can cover in 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a long time, and you can cover a ton of information in that amount of time. So, I mean, if you think about most TV sitcoms, right, they're only 21 minutes. So you can tell a whole story in get through everything in 21 minutes, you know, you could do a lot with 10. So, cool. I don't know if there is. I have run the tool for an hour and a half without stopping recording and haven't had any problems yet. I have noticed that we've had a couple people recently have a few issues with it dropping audio, and I think it's a resource issue where, you know, these files start to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think it's probably the limitation of your PC is really where the limitation is. You get a file that's cached and it's so big that your PC starts choking on it. So. Oh, I definitely recommend shutting everything that you can down. If you're going to record audio, also don't forget to turn off communicator. Don't forget to mute your cell phone. Don't forget all of those lovely things as well. You know, those are just basic good practices. So you can tell right now I don't have email running. I've got communicator shut down. I've got pretty much everything disabled on my PC. So, all right. Well, let's say that this music or this track's okay, but I want to add some background music to it. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to Project. I'm going to go Import Audio. Just so you know that if you do this under 1.3, Import Audio will be under the File menu. Okay. I'm going to go Import Audio, and I've already got some music set up here that I knew I wanted to import. It's going to import an MP3 file. There we go. So now I've got audio. Now look at how full that waveform is compared to what I just recorded. You know, so obviously it's very, very different. This is a highly produced track that came out of a music studio. So obviously it's a whole lot different than my $17 microphone in my laptop sitting in a conference room. So I can take these tracks. I've got a tool here for a time shift tool. I can grab them and move them around. Okay, so I could say, let's say I know that I'm going to want my audio to come in here because I want my vocals to come in here. So I want this cool little musical lead in, just like you hear on, you know, the news, right? It comes on, you get the little music lead in, and this stuff flies at you. And so, but I don't want to leave the volume of my music at full volume, right? Because it's going to drown out the conversation I'm trying to have. So I've got this cool little tool here called an envelope tool. So when I click this envelope tool, I'm going to zoom in here. There we go. So here you see my music track down here. My other track up here, and you see I got the two little arrows, one point up, one point down. I can just do a double click right there, and I can do a click here, and I can create that volume envelope. Okay, so now if I listen to this, oops, I got to go back to my selection tool. Okay, ooh, right? Simple as that. Yes, you can adjust your, so I can come in here. Oh, I guess, I'm sorry, I can't do it while it's playing. And also, this is a mistake that I would make with Audacity when I'd first start using it, is I'd hit the pause button, and it won't let me do anything. I have to actually stop the track and go in. So then I could do the same thing at the back end. You can say, okay, there's where my audio ends. I'm going to fade my music back up. Okay, simple as can be. Okay. See, the only bad part about doing these sessions is I think, damn it, you people think that we're smart back there and we do cool stuff, and then you see how simple it is. You're like, oh, a bunch of morons back there, a bunch of lackeys, man.
Rich?
Yes.
Let's say on the envelope tool you made that too small.
Mm-hmm.
You want a little bit more background music.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to undo and start over? Or is there
No, I can come down here. I can still come down here and grab this.
Okay.
As long as I have my envelope tool running. Keeping in mind that there's 2 points, right? So there's one here, and there's one over here. So I would need to adjust both of those. Okay. Make sense? All right. So now, any questions? We good so far? Cool. Okay. If I talked a little bit earlier about that, there was that sampling rate, 44,100. Real briefly, I just want to mention what that is because there's a lot of misunderstanding of people. They're used to using digital audio and they know that it's, I don't know, I got this MP3 file that I listened to and it's 128 whatever, sample rate whatever. Well, one of the big complaints that people had when digital audio first came out is that it's not true 100% audio. I'd say it's just numbers, right? It's ones and zeros. So there's gaps in there. There's these little nuances that you miss. So when I looked earlier and I looked at this preferences here, and I said that my default sample rate was 44,100 hertz. That means that I'm actually sampling this audio file 44,100 times per second. Okay, so I'm getting 44,100 little notations every second that say what that sound is supposed to sound like at that exact moment. And I can actually see these points. If I zoom in on this track, and I zoom way in, can you see those little tiny dots? There's a little dot there. Those are the actual sample points of that audio. So how the program, how digital audio works is each one of those is a moment in time where there's a numerical value that says this is what that audio is supposed to sound like. Okay? And it takes and it draws a natural curve between those 2 points. So it simulates what it should sound like between those 2 points. That's how digital audio functions. Whereas with an analog audio, let's say an LP or a magnetic cassette recording, you actually get that full analog wave. So that's the main difference between digital audio and analog audio. That's why there's some purists, quote-unquote purists, who say that digital audio is horrible because you are technically missing out on something. Now, can my $20 ear hear a $20,000 analog recording? No, I have a $20 ear. I'm recording with a $17 mic. I know that I can't hear. Okay? But I could actually grab this little pencil, this little draw tool, and I could move each one of these points. Yeah, I only got to do 44,100 per second. So now you know why record producers makes the money they do. Just wanted to give you a brief explanation of what that stuff is. So, and you can see that's at 27 seconds, 27.385020 seconds. So, yeah. So now you understand when we talk about sample rates. Now you can see I just adjusted that one sample point all out of whack. You won't be able to tell. You'll never know the difference. Okay. All right. Now, so I've got this audio recording. It's great. It's fantastic. Here, let me just chop the end off of this. And, well, actually, here's what I would actually do is I would probably make a cut right here. Let me zoom out a little bit more. Delete that. And if I want a nice smooth fade transition, I can just highlight a section, go Effect, and go Fade Out. Boom, it'll just put a nice little fade on there. So I just want that music to come back in and then just fade out. Okay. So now I want to export this, right? I want to give it and put it somewhere that's usable. I want to put it in my MP3 player. I want to put it on my cell phone. I want to pull it into my Camtasia recording. I go File, and I go Export. Now I've got two options here. I've got Export as WAV, Export as MP3. I also have options below that say Export Selection. So if I just had a piece of this that I wanted to export that I didn't feel like editing it all out, I could come in here and I could just highlight a section and just say, well, actually, all I want to do is edit or export that chunk that I have highlighted. Okay. But I'm going to export the whole thing.
That's what we do with Chad's outtakes.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, what we do with Chad's outtakes is I have two of these sessions running simultaneously, and I go copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. So, you have a couple of options here. This one you will never use. Okay, the OGG Vorbis. That's a European format that's used. You'll typically use MP3 or WAV. I usually use MP3. Now, if you have just downloaded Audacity and you try to export as an MP3, it will say, I don't have an encoder for MP3. Go download the lame encoder. It's actually called the lame encoder. The lame MP3 encoder. You can just do a search on it. There's many places where you can download it for free. It might even be on here. No. Yeah, but you can just go out and download the lame encoder, and there's even instructions. It'll say, download this file, put it here, you're happy. So the first time you try and export it as an MP3, it's going to go, hey, wait a minute, you don't have the encoder, where's it at? And you go, oh, and then you just point it to it, and you go, it's right here. And it goes, okay, I'm happy, and you'll never have to do it again.
Does it come with Audacity?
No.
That's lame.
Exactly. That is lame. Boo. So, or I can export it as a WAV. Pretty much all of your programs can handle waves. I use MP3 because it is a little more universal. I don't see any quality loss between the two. WAV is Windows Audio. I don't remember what the V stands for.
But if you're going
So.
to record something that you want us to pull into PowerPoint via Articulate,
Mhm.
we'll wait.
I do MP3s all the time.
Really?
Yep.
It converts it again to an MP3. I was finding that I was losing a lot of quality.
I use them all the time. I haven't tried. So if I click export MP3 here, it's going to say first. It's going to say give it a name. I'll give it a name. We'll call it. It's going to ask me if I want to put in some metadata. You know, when you're on your MP3 player or your phone or your Windows Media Player, it pops up and it says the title, the artist, the album. You can fill in all of that. You can put genre on there as well for meta tagging, so you can put all that tagging in there. Click OK, and it exports your MP3 file, and away you go. Yes?
Rich, that 44-100 sampling rate,
Mm-hmm.
is there a, because I know with MP3 files it's like 128.
You're looking for the encoding rate.
Is
Okay.
there, what's the correlation there? Is there a chart that shows you the correlation?
No, the sampling rate and the encoding rate are actually, they're different variables. You take, how do I not get too technical? If you take the sample rate and the bit depth, combine those, you get the end algorithm. Sorry. The only thing you really need to know is that if it's encoded at 360 is considered CD quality. Usually anything above 128 is considered acceptable for music playback. We've gone as low as 16 for straight vocal, and it actually sounds okay. It's not fantastic, but it sounds okay. I believe, I'm trying to remember, because I don't typically mess with, I can tell you how to do it on 1.3.6. Quality. I'm just trying to look here to see if I have my export quality for, yeah, here you go. Okay, there's your exporting quality for MP3. So I can go in here and say what it's at. Like I said, typically if I have stuff that I'm pushing into a project, I usually encode at 128. 128 is still considered CD quality, has a pretty small file size. If it's something that it's an audio file, it's just a voiceover like we were messing with the podcast the other day. We got a 21 and a half minute audio file of somebody speaking down to 2.5 meg, and it was still listenable. It was still good enough to be listened to. Very listenable. One of the things to keep in mind, and this is something that I learned when I started doing video work with these guys, is audio is half of video. So if you have a visual display you're putting together, people will sit through bad video, but they will not sit through bad audio. So you can have the most gorgeous visuals in the world, but if the audio sounds horrible, people will not watch it. You can have screwed up visuals, but as long as the audio is good quality, people will watch it. So, and if I can go out here and look at this, there's that MP3, and I could open it with Windows Media Player. Oh, Windows Media Player is playing back through my headphones. Sounds great in my headphones, sounds beautiful. So, yeah, take my word for it. Come on, there we go. Now, the one other thing, I'm just going to kill it. When you save these, you can do it. It'll save a project, and it'll actually create an Audacity project file for it. And it's going to create a few different files. So I just saved my project. If I go in here, I can see there's the AUP, Audacity audio project, and then there's all of the files that it created that make up that AUP. What these are is, I believe that these are just individual sound files and edit points. So
the sound files just animate.au? Is that what
you can't play them. You can't do anything with these. These are strictly for Audacity. You have to export it out of Audacity to make it anything that's playable. Yeah.
You would use those if you wanted
Oops.
to re-edit or change something.
Exactly. You want to go back to that audio file. That happens. You know, we'll get like I send a project out for review, you guys look at it and you come back and you go, can you change this audio or change that audio? I re-record it, maybe chop in a section or move some words around. And you get really creative when you go, man, I don't want to re-record that. If I move this word, oh, I said that word over here, I can chop that out and drop it in here and they'll never know. So.
If you don't save it as the Audacity file, what you lose is the ability of coming in and moving the edit points you have in there.
Yeah.
If you had that envelope, you don't save it as the Audacity, you can't come in and retouch up that envelope.
Well, it's not even going to save your raw recording either. If you don't save the Audacity file, it's only going to save the whatever you exported. So now I'm going to open up another Audacity project. You can see I've got 2 instances of it running now. And we had talked about one of the things that I said in the notice for this, that I wanted to create a ringtone, right? Something really, really simple. I'm going to import a song. I'm going to create here's a song I've got. I'm going to create a ringtone for my wife. Okay. So this is the audio file that I'm going to use. I want to make sure I know it's her calling. Okay. And anybody who knows my wife knows that that's fitting. So I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to listen. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to cut that, say, right here. Okay. So I'm going to grab that. And then all I'd have to do is export that as an MP3 and get it into my phone, use my Dropbox, use whatever I wanted to. Let's say I had a smaller section of music. I had just like a 10-second. I wanted that to loop. I wanted that to play over and over again. All I had to do is highlight what I want to loop, and I come up here and I have an effect. Right? Tell me I have one. Wrong version. Oh, there it is. Yeah, they call it loop in the other version. I use one version at work and one version at home. So you can see right here it says, if you repeat it 10 times, it will last 8 minutes and 40 seconds. That's way too long. So I want it to repeat twice. Okay. And if I do that, I go, okay. Okay. And it just throws it, loops it, repeats it for however long I wanted to. Then I could just take that, and I could go File, Export as MP3, and I could go save it. That's all there is to it. Put it in your phone however you see fit. Personally, I use Dropbox. Big fan of it. You guys ever use Dropbox? Very cool.
Kathy has a request for your next session.
Dropbox? Just teach you how to get it into your phone. Email it to yourself. Just download it off an email. And make that your ringtone. So, all right. Well, I mean, that's the basics of it. That at least gets you rolling. Any questions? It is not free.
Rigside headset, microphone, did you get that locally or did you go on the internet?
Bought off Amazon.
Amazon? Okay.
We've got a couple of them. Yeah, we've got a few of them floating around the building. So if you do want to use one, if you're going to record something, just let us know. We'll throw one your way. This one's my my personal one. I bought this one because I use it for Skype all the time, talking on the phone at home. So yeah, I plug it in and call my parents in Idaho or my nieces and nephews in California, and it's free that way. So, all right, any questions? Well, thanks for your attention. Appreciate you showing up. If you have any questions about Audacity, I don't claim to be an expert. I've just used it a fair amount. There's tons of stuff out on YouTube. It is a very, very, very popular tool. So a lot of guys that do screencasting, do podcasting and stuff use it as their tool of choice. So there's tons of tutorials available out there for anything you're looking to do. Some people do very, very creative things. There's other applications that you can download to partner with Audacity that will allow you to record two-way conversations via Skype for doing phone interviews. There's a lot of cool stuff like that you can do with it as well. So, all right.
Have you ever done like take an old LP
Mm-hmm.
and put it into that and take like the clicks and the scratches and stuff?
I haven't. I've done that, but not with Audacity. I don't know what the end result would be with Audacity. I'm sure there's people that have. I'm sure if you go and do a YouTube search on it, that there's somebody out there who will tell you here you can use these filters and do this and this and this, and you'll get a a decent sound quality out of it. So, all right. Well, thank you very much.